Hey, Busters. This is Buster One. We're going to change it up for this video. Normally, Mike runs the show and asks all the questions and does all this other stuff. I'm taking charge this time. I'm the one asking the questions. All kidding aside, what we wanted to do, given that Mike, you've run through and done concept videos for all the players for the first play group for Fall of Plaguestone, Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Right.
I thought that we should do a video for you. And while you're not playing as a player character, you're still here in the game. And I am, from my comic book nerd thing, I'm a fan of origin stories. And so my thought was, tell us your origin story. Tell us about Azmyth and where that started and your evolution from Azmyth to Azmyth Busters.
Okay. All right. So if we're talking about just gaming, I started playing tabletop role-playing games at the tender age of 7. It was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons at that point. It had transitioned, but and I skipped right to the hardbound books. I didn't start with the other ones. I eventually went back and tried them, but I started with basically D&D first edition, AD&D first edition. By about age 8.5, I was largely unhappy with how most of my GM options played out. They just weren't good, and I knew I could do a better job once I got a grasp of the whole thing. So by the time I was 8.5, I was running games. And unlike some parents who were freaked out about the satanic panic, my parents didn't care about that. They knew that my soul wasn't in jeopardy or anything like that, or I was going to hell. They were concerned because all of my friends were high school or older, because that's who my players were. That's who I was running for. So, my dad, being of the law enforcement of variety at that point in time, went through the necessary steps to make sure that I was cool and they were cool. But I just think that's kind of fun.
Good on you, Dad. Way to
yeah.
parent.
You're
no sarcasm there. Good on you, Dad.
You're talking about the 70s, so that was a very different world back then than it is today.
Sure.
So I have about 40 plus years experience as a storyteller and as a game master. I've played in dozens. I've learned 20 or 30 systems, and I've run dozens of systems, always tending to gravitate back to the ones that I prefer most, as you do. I was one of the earlier pioneers with my partner, Rob Steelwind. He and I basically figured out how to stream our games about a decade before anyone else had even thought of or would bother to do so. And I did it because I was facilitating having faraway players. Most of my players were in the room with me. I had one guy in Canada. I had one guy in LA. I had to facilitate those guys being able to play. And the way I figured it out was to use a little broadcast place called Justin.tv. Well, Justin TV, if you're hip to the history of streaming, you'll know that they grew up and became Twitch. I have the unique distinction, among other things, I have the unique distinction of being the very first tabletop RPG ever streamed on Justin TV or Twitch. So there's a lot of people doing it now. There's a lot of people making a lot of money off of it now. I was the first. I did it before anyone else. And I was almost kicked off their network because at that time they didn't understand. They didn't even understand what tabletop role playing was. And I wasn't a video game. And there was a time when they threatened to kick me off because I wasn't doing what they thought was right. Of course, that didn't happen. Fast forward 10 years and there's a multi-million-dollar industry around it. So I feel kind of cool about the fact that I have been doing this shit for a really long time. For a really, really long time. And it's funny because I opted to focus on running good games and not making a big media spectacle out of my games. And as the opportunity became more apparent to do so, I chose not to. Probably not the best decision, but, I focused on the games rather than the media behind it. So coming full circle now, the pandemic facilitated me to reinvent myself. I had already been working to some capacity as a pro GM. I had already been hired to do some corporate gigs and some birthday parties and things like that.
Right.
And I used the year of the pandemic to basically beta test how I was going to be a pro GM. And I did this through a Facebook group that I called Azmyth Play Gaming. And I brought in everybody who was my friend who I hadn't had the chance to game with or hadn't gamed with them in years. And I created a weekly campaign that was a show up to get up. You know, if you were there, you played, right? And some people played all the way through it. That is how our dear friend Scott Brown became, you know, very involved in gaming, because Scott became part of that campaign and gamed with me religiously every single week for many, many months. You know, when the pandemic was starting to look like there was a light at the end of the tunnel, you know, we're talking like around October, November of last year, I brought the Play Gaming campaign to an end, and I shifted it over to a professional format where all new games were pay games. And I've been very fortunate. I've been very lucky. I have been teaching a group of about 45 different kids, playing in various campaigns daily with a bunch of 9 to 13-year-old kids, which has been very enriching, very rewarding, and very trying on my patience. That's all I'm going to say about that. So sure. I'm really looking forward to moving into the corporate space, because that's my horizon. Is I'm moving more into the corporate space and working on, you know, some things in the background. I'm getting into the gaming industry in the way that only Azmyth could, and that's I'm backdooring the whole thing like I always do, right? So I don't take the approach that everybody else does. I do it through networking and through friendships and through knowing this person and introducing that person, and that's really, you know, the team build, like you said before. And we have put together for Azmyth Busters an incredible group of players, and I believe that the way we went about it was very organic. We had goals in mind, but we didn't make those goals like the deciding factor. We just threw it into the universe. We threw the cards into the wind, and we said, let's see how the shit falls. And it fell nearly to perfection, right? You know, we have I'm ecstatic about the group of players that we have for our first run. Now, for those of you who are wondering, we're going to be doing a lot of these.
Yes, we are.
By a lot, I mean, at some point when one ends, another one will start. And if we get into a good enough groove and we get some support, we get some sponsorships, we may be overlapping these things and running them simultaneously. Our next campaign following Pathfinder 2, I think this is the first time we've committed to it, Bloodlines and Black Magic by Storm Bunny Studios. The new edition is the 5e overlay, if you will. It is a new rule set called D20I, D20 Intuitive. It is basically they bolted on to the 5e rules, and it is an incredible game. That is the next thing that we'll be playing. There's the core rulebook there. You can find the core rulebook available both in print version and in PDF on rpg.net. So that's all really good stuff. That's what led us to here. Why are we doing this stream? We're doing this stream because I tend to run games very different than other people. I just do. The visuals of my games are very different. The essence of my games are very different. And the outcomes of my games are not like how a lot of people are doing it. There's a right and a wrong way for everyone. There is no polarized right and wrong way. There's a right and wrong way for each of us. And what I want to show people is that there is this super therapeutic aspect to tabletop gaming that is undeniable. It's undeniable. Anybody who says otherwise has their head up their ass. And we're going to show them what that's like. We're going to show them how when you develop vulnerabilities and trusts with people at the table, that transcends into your real essence and into your real life and into your real relationships with these people, and it improves your life exponentially. That's one of the transformative things about gaming. That is a very good thing that will change all of us. So I'm really excited about giving people an intimate access into my game table. If you've never played with me, if you've never seen one of our sessions, you're going to see a very different game. You're not going to see virtual tabletops. You're going to see beautiful miniatures. You're going to see maps. You're going to see 3D dioramas sometimes when I feel it's necessary. You're going to see high definition images. You're going to see all kinds of different things that you don't normally find in games. And what you're not going to find is you're not going to find arguments. You're not going to find challenges about rules. You're not going to find an adversarial, like Mark said in earlier videos. You're not going to find an adversarial relationship between Azmyth and his players. You're going to find a collaborative, cohesive, coordinated storytelling event that's going to happen with all of us. And that's not because it's scripted. That's not because we've planned anything out. I assure you, that's not how I roll. That's not how I present games. If you know the reveals ahead of time, it's almost like somebody spoiling the movie for you. So
one of the skills that I think people who aren't game masters may not see or appreciate is the ability to bring the right people together in a group.
I can agree with that. If you've played any organized play, or you've played at game stores, you've played at conventions, whether it's organized play or pickup games, then like sometimes you're stuck with what you get, both right. The quality of the GM and the quality of the players around you. And I've often referred to that as I've compared public gaming metaphorically to online porn. Like, you know what you're going to get, but you never know who or what you're going to get until you get there, kind of thing. I've always joked about that. And sometimes it's the best experience ever. Sometimes you meet the best people ever and they invite you into their home campaigns, which is like rocking. And other times you have substandard experiences. And that's just, like anything in life. But this experience here, this isn't about Publix. This isn't even about picking the best gamers I know. Because I don't want to give anybody the impression this is about elitism. I haven't handpicked all these people that I know because they're the greatest gamers in the world. Quite the contrary. I have picked players that have experience all the way from full published authors to have never played a game before. We're looking for inclusions. We're looking for marginalized communities. We're looking for, I don't just want a bunch of pasty white guys at my table. I want all these different inputs and all these other points of view. I want to empower my friends who are normally silenced. I want to empower them with their fucking voice. And we're going to do it through Azmyth Busters. We're going to do it through this therapy where all of my players, no matter how hectic their life is, no matter what shit they're going through in their lives, this segment every single week is their time to tune in and tune out and just be their character, be in the moment, be in the game. And you guys are going to see how this will literally change the people playing this game over time. They are not actors. They are not professional anything. They're just a bunch of my friends we're going to be playing together, and you're going to watch them change over time as a result of this game. And most of these people don't really know each other all that well prior to this experience. We've all kind of met and brought together for this experience specifically. Like, each one of us know the other person. Like, I know everybody because I brought the group together, but like, you've got your connection with your niece, and Steven has connection with the industry, and Chris has a connection to the industry, and just all that kind of. Like I said, the best way to put it is we threw the cards up into the wind and we let them blow and fall as they may. And so far, it feels like we have struck gold. And if I can keep this kind of methodology going, I hope that each group will be this powerful and this dynamic. with the exception that it's going to be me and you at each one, because I'm going to be at the helm and you're going to be my producer for all these. So there will always be us involved. And sometimes, just sometimes, we will be bringing in the authors and creators of some of these role-playing games to run them for us. And, you know, I'm going to pick up the hand at playing. But first, a few of them are going to be me at the helm. This is also, as I said, I have ulterior motives. This is to promote my professional game mastering and storytelling business. I am available for hire for campaign play and for one-shots. And now that the world is opening back up again, if you're local to Northern California, I'm also available for doing live events, adult bookings preferred. So besides that, like, there's so many exciting things happening right now and so many irons and so many fires. It's like we went from famine to absolute feast. So
Feast is so much better.
It really is. And I'm excited. I'm excited about the whole thing.
I am too. And to a person, every one of the players that I've spoken to, either before the videos that we've run or in other conversations or in our communications, in our media channels, everyone has echoed that same level of excitement. And really, Mike, I think that is the key, is continuing to find people that have that level of excitement. And freely, you know, my selfish motive is as the co-creator, I get to play in all the games that I want to play in, and that was one of the reasons that I wanted to do it personally, was it just means I get to play more, and this is amazing. I meet great people.
You've not been cryptic about that fact from the very get-go, that the whole method to your madness was that she could get some more games in.
Selfish bastard, and I don't care.
And the other aspect of this, which you know as well, because you've played in a few of my games already, and you know how I roll, is that the start of every new game has a session 0. And we've talked about it a little bit in each of the character rifting videos. But basically, the first session that we're recording this week is basically us coming together as a group, talking about what's okay and what's not okay within the context of this story. What is a subject line that is okay to be referenced? What is a subject matter not to be referenced at all? What is a subject matter that can be displayed in a little more detail, maybe graphic violence or something along those lines? We establish a social contract, so we all know what kind of game we want to play. It sets expectations, and it also empowers the players to realize your voices matter just as much as mine, and they carry just as much weight as I do. And if you feel, after making a social contract agreement with the other players and the GM, that is being jeopardized, either in or out of play, it empowers you. It gives you borders, and it gives you rules in which to say, hey, we said it was going to be like this, and you've crossed that line, and I'm really not comfortable with it. So it's an empowering thing for everyone. It also, you know, people use the term triggery a lot. I try not to use that term, but a lot of people do. There are subject matter that do set people off that they just have zero tolerance with. I get it. That is not the type of storytelling I really want to tell. If I'm telling a really hard to hear kind of tale, it's going to be for people that I already know want to be part of that experience. I'm not a shock GM. I don't dig that shit, and I don't like making people feel uncomfortable at the game table. If I make you as a person, or I allow my other players to make you as a person feel uncomfortable, you have just been pulled out of your immersive layer. You cannot be in character, because now you have to feel real emotions and real shit that you don't want to deal with. So that's one of the reasons why we do session 0s, and it's so important. And so many GMs don't do it. And I've seen some pushback on the concept from some GMs. They're like, well, you know, I don't see any advantage to it. And we're going to show you
an advantage that you haven't mentioned, because it doesn't apply 100% of the time, but applies to all the games that I have played in thus far. One of the other advantages that it provides for people that have not met previously and don't have relationships in real life, it gives us the opportunity to meet and simply talk to each other as human beings and get to know our other players. I thoroughly enjoy everybody in this group to the same degree that I enjoy all of my Shield brothers on Tuesday night. I love you guys. And a lot of that, right, if I just look at Tuesday in our weekly game, is because we had a solid session 0 and we all got on video and sat around and said, hi, I'm so-and-so. Hi, I'm so-and-so. We all met each other for the first time. At least they were all new to me. And we talked about the not the triggers, because I agree with you, that word can potentially be overused and has all kinds of issues with the term. But we talked about the framework. Here's the type of game we want to play. Here are the elements that are important to us. And I know that's one of the things that I brought up when we first talked, is that, you know what, our game master has a voice. I want to be in a collective story that we're all telling together, and I want to tell a story that's never been told before. That is what excites me. I was just going to say,
I hear too often from disgruntled players about how GMs speaking of the game as if it's their game, taking personally possession like it's my game. My game, my rules. I'm God, I'm GM, my game, my rules. That's not how I have ever rolled. That harbors that adversarial relationship. It doesn't make it go away. It makes it worse. I feel quite the opposite, that when my players are fully invested in it, when they feel it, this is my game, my story, like I want to expand my character in this manner. And I know I can go to my GM and say, you know, I have this whole background idea I want to bring to bear. Can we work this into my storyline? Yes, we can. You know, it's that kind of give and take that I really, really love. So.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's going to be a good experience. I'm looking forward to it. I think we've done all the cool things. We're putting up character record sheets so people can see the characters. We have done character concept videos for each and every one of the players, so you can meet them individually and then meet their character concept as well. And then the very first video you're going to see post by us is going to be session 0, which is this session we're talking about, this establishment of the social contract, this reinforcement of what's okay and what's not okay. And honestly, it doesn't have to be a big burden. It can be a 10-minute conversation. Boom, you're done. It can be longer if you want to have bigger conversations and bigger discussions about things. And I can only say that the subject matter being explored by the story kind of dictates whether or not they're going to be there. For example, we're playing the Fall of Plaguestone. I'm not going to bring up, like, does anybody not want to have a rape story? Because it's not in the module. So I'm not going to talk about anything that's not in the module for this particular session 0. But after reading through it, I'm going to pull out the areas that I think may be problematic or not problematic. We're going to talk about those things. And we're going to give every single player their opportunity to air the things that they don't want to have in their game. In order for me to be immersed in the experience, in order for me to stay in character, I would like the following things to either not be referenced, only referenced, or referenced in detail. And that's kind of how I roll with it. That's kind of my, good, better, best. And 9 times out of 10, if somebody gives me a subject matter to avoid, it's not a hard thing to do. They're not asking me to break my story and rewrite the damn thing. They're just saying, make slight little adjustments if necessary. And if not, then thank you very much. I've shared with you. It's empowering to share with the group. I don't want to have this in my game. Sometimes people will say the reasons why. Here comes more therapy. It becomes like group therapy. I don't want to talk about, molestation because of blah. I don't want to talk about rape stuff because of blah. Gratuitous violence with lots of this reminds me of blah. Okay. People may get that out in a session 0. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't need to be part of it, but sometimes it is. Likely for our group, I expect our group is probably going to want to share a little bit with everybody why they don't want certain things. And I'm fine with that too. That's part of it. That's part of the group hug experience. So
You know,
Look,
what I can tell you from a player perspective, just to lean into what you're saying, Mike, because I completely agree with you on the session zero. Having had a session zero, so my Shield brothers and I on Tuesdays, we play a 4-hour session, right? For those of you that don't know, this is an East Coast, West Coast thing Mike and I are doing. He's in Northern California. I'm 30 miles outside of the District of Columbia. So we're on a 3-hour time difference. Literally. And every Tuesday night, I stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning, my time, to play, our game. And I love it. And I won't miss it for anything. And I believe we're about to hit our 24th or 25th session. And the only misses we've had have been for legal reasons, right? One of our Shield brothers was in the ER kind of thing. And then another one was down for that's it, right? We don't miss these things. Everybody shows up on time, and we have so much fun, and it's amazing. And no, we're not perfect, and every once in a while we have to, recalibrate. But it's an amazing experience, and for me, a lot of that stemmed from that session zero that we had that lasted, a whole 4-hour block, and I still remember that. What you said, if people are willing to show up for this 4-hour session zero, then we know they're willing to show up for the campaign.
Right.
And they did, and they still do. And it's fucking awesome. So as someone who's newly returning to this hobby, my opinion is I love session zero, and my stance is I'll never play in a game with any game master without one.
Sure.
So do with that information what you choose.
Yeah. Totally. All right, man. Well, I think we've said all we need to say. Session zero is up next. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends. Azmyth Busters is coming, and we want to be, your weekly gameplay experience. So if you're already doing it, add us to the lists. And there's also little crumbs here. There's also going to be a coinciding podcast of the gameplay audio that we're going to release in podcast form for those of you who are commuting, riding your exercise bike, whatever the case may be, going for a walk. You don't have a video in front of you, but you'd like to listen to the games. We will have a channel for that. We will be serving all of your gaming needs.
Indeed we shall. Coming soon. Bye, guys.